Hey, ladies, we want you to mark your calendar for October 5th through the 12th, 2025, because we're taking you on an epic pilgrimage to Crete.
That's right. We're doing a beautiful retreat called Awakening the Goddess, where we are going to nurture ourselves from the inside out. You're going to be learning all kinds of sacred sexual practices from both the Taoist and the Tantric perspective. We'll be doing yoga every day. We'll be going and visiting sacred sites and really harnessing the energy of the primordial goddess, meaning the original divine feminine energy that is so alive on this island. I was just there last year and it was a game changer for me. And I was like, Leah, we got to put together the retreat that I want to go to. So this is it.
Yeah, there's something very special about women coming together and healing and awakening each other's Shakti to really resolve some of the blocks, some of the hurt, some of the traumas from the past, to shed that dead weight so that you can become more alive. You can become more magnetic, cultivating trust, cultivating vulnerability, cultivating presence, coming into a new state of consciousness in the arms of a group of really amazing women, sisters, and friends you're going to have for a lifetime, including Willow and I. So join us on the plane. Let's get this party started. You can sign up at sexreimagine.com and let's go to Greece, baby.
Today, we're going to be talking about what it means to fuck your way to enlightenment and what the heck is enlightenment anyway when it comes to tantric world.
Welcome to the Sex Reimagined podcast, where sex is shame-free and pleasure-forward. Let's get into the show.
All right. So today we are so blessed and so excited to be here with the one and only Devi Ward Erikson. She is the founder of the Institute of Authentic Tantra Education. She's been featured as a tantric healing expert in over 30 different radio and television networks worldwide, including Playboy magazine, Men's Health, and a myriad of other places. She's also been on the show Sexology, which is pretty awesome. She is super certified in so many different areas, highly, highly trained, and carries such deep, deep wisdom in these ancient arts. So basically, Devi knows what she's talking about. And as you can see, she walks her talk. She is a glowing, radiant queen, and we are so blessed to have her. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Debbie. Thank you.
Why don't we start off right there? Tell us what enlightenment is to you, Debbie.
Yeah, so enlightenment is freedom from suffering, as far as I know, right? So my Lama often talks about enlightenment as a natural state of being. It means being a mature human being free of the 5 root poisons of anger, attachment, pride, jealousy, and ignorance. And for me, enlightenment means living anchored in the qualities of bliss, equanimity, openness, clarity, and joy. So it's really, to me, just about being a happy, whole, fully integrated human being, free of trauma, free of suffering, free of our own discursive negative thoughts, and just being fully present and fully embodied and living from a place of love and connection.
And so how does sex get us to that?
Yeah,
it's a beautiful description.
Yeah, that's $1 million question. And that's actually the thing that turned me on to being trained in Tantra. So the concept of uniting sexuality with your spirituality was a radical concept. And I was very curious about how this occurred. I wanted to know the mechanics. I didn't just want concept and theory. I wanted to know concrete, like, how do we get from A to B? So what actually sold me on this idea is a teaching in the Tibetan Tantric tradition. And that is that at the moment of orgasm, that peak of pleasure, the moving pranas in your genitals brush the central channel, which is the Sushumna Nadi, or the core of the life force in the body. And so at the moment of orgasm, those pranas brush the central channel, and we get a glimpse of enlightenment. We get a glimpse of our bliss-void nature. So if you think of that moment of orgasm, there's no I in orgasm. It's egoless. In fact, we have to completely surrender the ego in order to fully experience orgasm. That is enlightenment. And it's hardwired into the human design. Every human being has access to that, whether we know it or not, right? So that is part of the human blueprint. So for me, I was like, well, shit, if that's already hardwired into us, how do we build upon that? How can we access that by choice whenever we want? And then how do we build upon it? So instead of having a genital sneeze as an orgasm, I have a 10-minute orgasm, a 20-minute orgasm, an hour-long orgasm. How do I exist in orgasmic bliss? That's what I wanted to know. And so that's the teaching that led me to this path.
Beautiful.
Oh my God, love it.
I love Bliss-Void. I mean, what a great way to describe an
Describe that
orgasm.
thing.
There is a bliss void instead of a blackout. It's like a whiteout. And I dig it. Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm going to borrow that term.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's part of the Tibetan Tantra tradition, so I don't own it. So yeah, you're
Okay,
bliss by
good.
nature, right?
Yeah.
And it's accessible to all of us. It's accessible to every human being.
It's so interesting how similar, it is to the Taoist tradition, the Tibetan. I know you know the Taoist tradition as well. And, in the Taoist tradition, we call that moment a tiny death, where you have no sense of being male or female or Willow or Lee or Devi. You have no kind of like, am I this person or that person? All that ego and identification just completely, like, everyone listening, next time you have an orgasm, try to notice if you can have a sense of self in that
Yeah.
moment.
Try
You
to
really
think.
can't.
During orgasm, and I bet you can.
Yeah, you
It's
really
like, it's like
can't.
finally you get relief from the mind.
And that tiny death, it's the ego death, right? It's that moment where we get to drop
Exactly.
into the oneness. So if we can stretch that out, like you're saying, 20-minute, hour-long orgasmic bliss, then hot damn, we're sitting in enlightenment.
Yeah.
Well, exactly. And when we rest in that bliss, it actually rewires the brain, right? So then our whole worldview, this is how we carry it out of the bedroom into our everyday life. Resting in this orgasmic state of expanded consciousness has a physiological effect on the brain. Chemicals are produced, and all of that, in my experience, actually heals and repairs the brain. And then we bring that healing and repair into our everyday life.
And there's so much to heal and repair when it comes to our lives as these dualistic seeming human beings, and the traumas that we go through and the childhoods that we all have to survive. Even those with happy childhoods have their elements of having to pinpoint the inflection points that end up shaping the road that they take and the meaning that they derive from those experiences, which then creates an identity structure. Is that the belief system that I would be most served by? As we over-identify with some painful stuff as a child that we make a lot of meaning from. I know I have. And I know that a lot of your work, your specialty is around sexual healing. Could you share more about that, both like, your story and how your school addresses sexual healing?
Absolutely. So the focus is on sexual healing because that was my journey, because that is how I came to Tantra. It was introduced to me as a path of healing and a path to realize my ultimate nature. At the time, I didn't have a concept of sexual healing. Like, those two concepts were not married in my brain. I was a monk, right? I had been a monk for a decade. So the concept of enlightenment was amazing. The concept of like healing from my suffering, that was really amazing. But I didn't understand how my sexuality really fit into that. And I actually didn't understand how deeply I needed to heal sexually. Because that's the thing, in this conditioned existence in mainstream society, what is normal for sex is actually trauma. That's normal, right? So I was coming from this position that I was just sexually normal, and then come to find out that I'm actually sexually traumatized and sexually shut down, even though I was a stripper in my early 20s. So the path of and the process of sexual healing for me transformed me from the inside out. And it was an embodied experience of using pleasure as medicine, sex as medicine, combined with these yogic methods, these somatic sexual healing practices. And I blew through a lifetime of trauma in a very short period of time by being able to rest in that orgasmic void state while my traumas arose in the center of it, and being able to redirect my focus from the pain of that event to the bliss of this orgasm. So it's like my trauma was arising in a container of bliss. It was really easy to let it go. So that is that is the brilliance of sexual healing for me, is that it's not like, someone's hot and then the dancing and the chip away at it with an ice pick and the armor and the whatever. Dude, with bliss and orgasm, it melts away.
Like, there's no more room for the trauma. It's like, let's pack these cells and these tissues with so much bliss and so much good. that there's no more room for the trauma. And then you don't have to go through the story and figure it out and talk about it. Be in your head
You
about
can
it
skip decades
for
of therapy.
years. Yeah, you will can. And also just the nervous system shifts. Like I've worked with people who were traumatized at, 4 years old, 2 years old, and they go through this shake sometimes, this like absolute reconfiguration of not only the brain pathways, but these whole bodies, like the Sushumna gets completely cleansed and purified. And they're just a different person the next day. It's so powerful.
Isn't that amazing? It completely cleansed and purified with orgasmic bliss.
Love it.
And these mofos want to try and tell us that like sex and tantra don't connect. Like, look, not you guys, but we hear that in the field. Well, there's no such sex and tantra. I'm like, look, not in my lineage.
That's me.
Right.
That's right. Oh, well, I love how you marry. I mean, you've had such an interesting journey, a stripper to a monk to a, here you are blending the two. I love how you bring the Tibetan medicine into your tantric teaching. I think that's really unique and really, really, for me, very exciting. I love to geek out on the ancient stuff. So
yeah, well, again, that was the foundation of my training. So I didn't enter Tantra through a workshop or through a class. I had seen Neo-Tantra on my radar. I was not interested at all because I didn't understand how what I saw would lead to greater realization. And I was very committed to my path. Again, I took vows. I was a monk. I was committed to the realization of my ultimate nature in this human form. And so for me, when the tantric teachings, when I encountered the tantric teachings, they were through this particular lineage. I was trained under the umbrella with the blessing and permission of a lama under this lineage of the Shankmakagyu tradition. And so the way tantra integrated into my system was as a form of medicine. And that is the way my lama teaches tantra. He teaches non-sexual tantra to the public. Well, and he teaches non-sexual tantra to the public, but he teaches tantra as medicine and as a tool for healing and transforming and realizing our ultimate nature.
So powerful. And do you have any fun, like, I'm sure you have a million miracle stories, but like, where you've really seen pleasure, orgasmic energy, sexual energy, like heal someone's physical ailments and body?
Yes. So what the most tangible experiences that I see are particularly for people with vulvas and vaginas who have a lot of numbness and lack of sensation. And so what we've observed through the years, and these are always like incredible celebrations, is a woman will come and come to work with us or one of our graduates, and she's completely shut down, has little to no sensation, let's say, in her clitoris. And through doing the practices, the non-sexual 5-element tantra practices, and then weaving that into the sexual pleasure practices that we teach, in a very short period of time, sensation begins to arise. And then through that, when they're able to access sensation, then we build upon that until that sensation becomes pleasure. And then again, in a very short period of time, they're able to experience bliss and orgasm through sexual stimulation. It's like their body opens up, the channels open up, and then they're able to reclaim their birthright to orgasm and pleasure, again, in a very short period of time. So that's not necessarily like correcting an illness, so to speak, but it is correcting. Like if you've gone 30 years and you've never felt sensation in your clitoris, to within a matter of 4 to 8 weeks, all of a sudden you're having clitoral orgasms, that is tremendous. And that is a story that we hear over and over and over again.
Can you say a little bit more about the process? Like, it sounds like there's genital massage, but what are the other elements and concepts that you're using to facilitate the movement or the turn on or the neural pathways syncing up between those channels so that you can go from being numb for 30 years and feeling nothing to actually having sensation to the point that 6 weeks later, you're going into full-on bliss? What other elements are you bringing to the table regarding that?
The energy body yoga of Tibetan 5 Element Tantra. So that is the emphasis and that is the foundation of everything that we teach. So in this system of healing, the energy body is considered senior or superior to the physical body. And so if we're able to access the energy body, we can catalyze change on the physical level. We work specifically with the 5 element teachings, and the 5 elements in this tradition are earth, water, fire, air, and space. And each of the 5 elements is an antidote to one of the 5 root poisons of human emotion, which are anger, attachment, pride, jealousy, and ignorance. So by working with these yogic methods of meditation, so we start with a non-sexual energy body yoga first. And so doing sitting meditation with visualization, chanting mantra, and engaging with the energy body directly, working with each element and its corresponding energy center to purify blocks and obstacles in the channels and to purify those root poisons. That clears the pathway and creates a fertile ground for a stable foundation to then layer the somatic sexual healing practices. So they work so quickly because we're starting with the energy body and clearing. I call it like sending in the ground troops to begin that clearing process first. And then we add the physical yoga on top of it. So the physical yogas consist of breath, self-stimulation. We have a variety of you have, yes, absolutely genital massage, but then we also just have things that aren't necessarily massage, but just self-stimulation practices, different strokes, integrating the breath at certain peaks of pleasure to ride those waves. But then in the center of it, we drop the 5 element teachings as well. So this is actually why we named our modality Authentic Tantra, because the sexual teachings of the Tibetan 5 elements are some of the most authentic and original teachings for how to harness human sexual energy and use it for healing and transformation. And so that's what we teach our students to do. So first you build a stable foundation with clearing the energy body and cultivating mindfulness and presence. Then we work with a physical yogic practice so that you can start working with the winds and the movement of energy in your body. And then we layer on top of that, the visualization and the energy body yoga of Tibetan 5 element sexual tantra. And that's why it goes so fast, because it's working holistically.
Love
And
it.
at the root, I
Gorgeous.
love how the Tibetan, I always had this theory coming from the Chinese medicine background and also knowing a little bit about Ayurvedic. And so then also bridging the Taoist sexology and the Tantra. And I'm always thinking, gosh, it must all come from Tibet, right? Because that's like the originator of all of this philosophy and all of this medicine. And then India took their version and China took their version. And so I love that that's where that authentic Tantra, the name of it really comes from, that original, how do you harness this energy and the sensation and open yourself up to more experience in your body?
Exactly. And I studied Tibetan medicine a little bit. And from what I understand, there's so much overlap because they were having medical conferences in like 700 AD, where people from China, Tibet, and India and Persia were all coming together and exchanging and sharing information and medicine. So there's a lot of overlap because of that.
Yeah. So can you say something more about pleasure and medicine? Like you've talked about it quickly healing the psyche of trauma and moving that out of the system, being able to go from being non-orgasmic to orgasmic. What else is the bridge that makes this medicine?
Yeah. So the other component for me is a physiological response that occurs in the body when we experience pleasure. And so I'm sure, Dr. Willow, you can speak about this much more. It's been a long time since I've written or lectured on all the different chemicals that are released in the body during pleasure, but it's healthy for us. Like pleasure is medicine. It really is. It's medicine. Human beings are wired for pleasure, right? And a very simple example is like, if you like something, you keep doing it. If you don't like something, you don't want to do it. You know, same as food. It's like how we evolved over millennia is by following pleasure. If something tastes good, it was safe to eat. If something was stinky or nasty or bitter or didn't taste good, generally it was poisonous. It's very, very simple. So pleasure, good, pain, yucky, or, try to avoid it, have aversion there. But it's literally wired into human physiology that pleasure is medicinal. Pleasure is healing for us, releasing all, oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin, increases your immune system, like all of that scientific stuff that just goes back to, yes, pleasure is healthy for us. That's what it is to be human.
Let's take a quick break.
Hey guys, what would it be like if you could last 10 times longer when you're having sex?
We are going to teach you how to gain massive confidence as a lover, all without performance anxiety, gimmicks, or prescription.
This course is perfect for you if you've ever been mortified by a sexual encounter that ended way too early.
Or if you've ever avoided intimacy out of fear that you won't last as long as your lover desires. Or maybe you long to give your partner multiple orgasms, but can't last long enough to make that a reality.
Well, good news, we've got your back. And it's in our course, Last 10 Times Longer. Go to sexreimagine.com/last-10X longer.
And for all of our favorite listeners out there, we are giving you a discount, 20% off, y'all. Just put in podcast 20, all caps, podcast 20 to get your 20% off of this phenomenal course that you're going to want to review more than once.
We cannot wait to see you inside this course. Plus, don't forget, we always got tons of bonuses. See you there.
It's so simple. It's so, and if we can drop into the simplicity of it, sure, we can find all kinds of science to back it up, but really all we need to do is experience it. And when you're experiencing it on a daily basis, on a regular basis, then, you don't need any convincing. You don't need to read studies. You can see the difference in your own body and your own life.
Yeah, and I think one of the greatest, tragedies of the society is conditioning us to fear pleasure and to fear our bodies, right? That's the whole patriarchal blah de blah that we talk about. Conditioning us away from our own intuitive power and our own intuitive wisdom. And pleasure is a huge role in that. When it feels good in the body, that's a yes. When it feels yucky, that's a no. But we've been taught and trained in the society to override that. And so that has been a source of trauma for many of us. Overriding that intuitive knowing in our own bodies has led some of us down paths that we wish we hadn't gone down.
Yeah, and that conditioning can create these unconscious reactions to life, where we become defensive or we become jealous, like you said, or angry, like you said. These are reactions that aren't our choosing. We're dropped into our little bodies. Yeah. And half the time we don't even know why we react the way that we react. And frankly, you don't need to know why. You just have to do the piece that shakes it out, so that you don't have to keep feeling angry and keep feeling jealous, that there's hope that you can break those patterns and that conditioning.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many different pathways to that. So for me, the 5 element teachings are the core pathway for me, because they directly antidote those 5 root poisons. And after 13 years of doing those specifically, I can tell you they work. I have a lot less poison in my mind and body than I did when I first started. And the same with my students and everyone in my universe, right? The healing, it seems like, the healing happens so quickly, but then layered over years and years and years, it's like, wow, I've come a long way in 13 years, right? The beginning of the journey, it seemed like I was going at lightning speed. And as we continue to go, it just increases and increases, and the results become even more and more pronounced. And so, yeah, healing those traumas, those micro traumas and macro traumas that we've experienced in life that keep us contained in that loop of pain and suffering, and finding ways to antidote that and break through that to restore our human capacity for connection and pleasure and joy. And that to me is the goal of Tantra.
Yeah, and it's really such a layered process. The basics of what you're teaching, this 5 element, system, is like you could take that and be at any place in your journey of sexual awakening and just get so much out of it, no matter where you're at. You're just starting out, or if you're at a level that the 3 of us are at, or some other level that's crazy, you can still go so much deeper with what's possible for your own healing and evolution with the simplest stuff, which is what is so powerful about it.
Exactly. That's the beauty of lineage-based teachings. They can meet you wherever you're at.
Yeah. Can you give us because right now we're looking at you and you're this beautiful, vivacious, you radiate, right? You can feel the embodied knowledge, number one. Like you can tell when someone knows their stuff because it's in their body and then it comes from there and they can share it from here. But I imagine that's not where you started. So what is the picture of Devi before she had this transformation?
Yeah. Thank you for that. So, you very, very definitely, I was not who I am today. Never conceived of being where I am today. It was like a whole alternate reality, right? So, my story, I was born in 1974, and I'm biracial and Black. I claim both. I was born 5 years after interracial marriage became legal in the United States. And I share this because this was very important for my formative years. Number one, 5 years before I was born, I was not legally allowed to exist in marriage. So, just thinking of that, like not being allowed to exist.
And I think conceptually, we think that was so much further away than it actually was.
Yeah. So just because the law changed doesn't mean that the cultural climate changed or society changed. And so I experienced a tremendous amount of racial violence as a very little tiny child. We think 21 people were murdered in Texas, 19 little babies, 19 little fourth graders. And they're tiny. Looking at pictures of them, they're tiny, right? You little tiny babies. And that's what I was experiencing at that age. I was experiencing people shouting, racial curses and racial slurs at me, kids my own age, adults. Like that was like walking home from school every day. That's the trauma that I had to live through just as a little third grader, fourth grader, fifth grader, a little tiny baby. So that shaped me and wounded me deeply, I will say. They call it internalized racial inferiority now. Now there's a name for it. But at the time, I was just fucked up, right? So there's that. And then layering on top of that, I was sexually abused as a child by one of my extended family members. And so I had that trauma wired into me. And then I had, two traumatized parents, grew up in a home of domestic violence, intense domestic violence. And so then I had that trauma wired into me. So by the time I was a young adult, I had survived several suicide attempts. I was just a mess. And this is like in the late 1980s, early 1990s. And so the world of trauma-informed awareness is not what it is today. We had no fucking clue. We were bumbling around in the dark. I just thought it was a head case. I didn't know that I was traumatized. And so I tell this story often to give context and to give people hope. When I was around 20, that whole age is blurry for me because so much was happening. And I was a stripper in Detroit. So it's not like being a stripper in Vegas. I was a stripper on Michigan Avenue and 8 Mile with Eminem, in Detroit, Woodward Avenue. It was not pretty.
Wow. You grew up in Michigan?
I was born in Washington, D.C., and I moved around a lot, but I was in Michigan from the age of 12 to 22, 23-ish.
Okay. I grew up in Michigan, too. I didn't know that you are around.
Where about?
East Lansing. So Michigan State University, kind of grew up as a little campus kid.
All right. I moved down in Plymouth, Canton, Ann Arbor area, and then Detroit.
Sure.
So when I was 19 and I was stripping in Detroit, I was overwhelmed by my own trauma. I was devastated. It was the darkest period of my life, and there was no hope. And I sat down with a razor blade and a gallon of wine. And I was really committed to ending my life. It was my first, what I would call, serious suicide attempt. And needless to say, that did not occur through the grace of God and the love of my mother, I will say. And that was my bottom. Because for me, the idea and concept of suicide had always been my plan B. And in that moment, when I was 100% committed to taking my life, and when I got to that point, I couldn't, jump from that ledge. I couldn't cross that bound, whatever it is. I couldn't do it. I knew that I could no longer psych myself out and pretend like that was plan B. I knew that I needed to commit entirely to living. And so I did.
Wow.
And I refused to live in suffering. I refused to live in pain. I knew that there was something else, and I was determined to find it. So that began my spiritual journey. That began my spiritual seeking. And at the time, again, there wasn't somatic therapy. I mean, I had some talk therapy, I did some breath work, but none of it was getting to the root of the suffering. So I devoted myself and I devoted my life to God. And I moved to Hawaii, became a monk, moved to North Carolina, went through training, and that was my life plan. I was going to be a monk and travel the country and travel the world teaching meditation. And then I found my way to Kauai. And after a couple of years there, I encountered Tibetan Five Element Tantra, and here I am today.
Wow. What a great
journey.
story. Wow. I'm sure there's viewers that can really relate with parts of your journey and how deep that despair and isolation and deep loneliness.
Yeah.
We've got that place inside of ourselves that really, truly covers up that feeling of not being worthy, not deserving of a body,
Yeah.
and all these things that causes us to think about wanting out.
Yeah.
And we choose all sorts of things to try to distract us from feeling that kind of pain.
Yeah.
And what a beautiful example of choosing to live and then like being tenacious for that, like going for it.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
We're so glad you did
Yeah.
not succeed at your commitment to your own life. And that's true for anyone who's in that state. I've definitely been there myself, and it's such an opportunity to look. I feel like those darkest recesses of our souls, that's some serious medicine in there. So if you can go in and extract those shadows and really look at them and really be with them, you can become like Devi. Like, you can become this glowing, amazing, like, soul in the world who walks their talk and has studied, prolifically, and has become somebody who knows how to shed grace on this wild world. When the shootings happened, I was talking to my mom, and she's like, what am I supposed to do? I don't have an answer. I'm like, well, I think I have an answer. And it's the same answer that you have, Debbie, is just like, look deeper, like, go inside to those places that make you want to end your life and end it all. And just get close to them, get to know them. Don't try to get rid of them or get away from them. Get to know them. There's a lot of power there.
Yeah. The concept of the wounded healer. And there's a
Exactly.
concept, and I'm not sure where it comes from. It's in my mind that it's Tibetan medicine, but it could be that could be incorrect. But it's like the deeper the suffering. No, it's NVC. It's the deeper the pain, the greater the need. The deeper the suffering, the more potential for power and healing and transformation. And so, one thing that you said, Leah, that really resonated is the isolation of those moments. And so, for me, the thing that kept me from doing the deed was the knowing of what it would do to my mother. So it was actually that thread and that cord of love. Even though my mother didn't, and I didn't have a good relationship at all, I could not leave her with that suffering. And so that she was my lifeline in that moment. And she was what kept me here and in the body. And so, I didn't slip my wrist. I didn't take that final cut because of connection, because of the power of love. And when we feel so isolated, part of that is disconnected and not having any resources for support. So I would just implore you, anyone who is in a deep, dark night of the soul, is reach out for support and connection, because connection is the medicine. Connection is what is going to help us navigate these dark hellholes that we may need to, go through in our lives. But we must have support to do it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I had that moment, that inflection point moment when Oprah shared her story about being sexually abused as a kid, because I thought I was all alone in my story. And although I didn't have a relationship to Oprah, I want one. She was this person who I watched every day after school and I adored. And so to have someone who I admired so much, who had this huge stage, reveal a secret, and watching her physical experience as she opened up about this, it was like I knew I wasn't alone. I didn't have her to talk to. It took me years before I talked to anyone else afterward, but it was like even someone on TV who you can relate with, who you don't even know, but who's sharing your story, gave me it bought me years in order to be able to finally go to open up this big, deep, isolating secret. I really thought I was the only one that this was happening to. And that naivety, when you just don't know. You don't know. Isolation just keeps you so small. What Devi is saying is reach for connection. Because as human beings, we thrive with the feeling of belonging. And you came into this body to live in this body, no matter how painful it can be. And pleasure is your birthright, and pleasure is medicine. And so just keep aiming for the pleasure without attachment to the pleasure. But keep aiming for all the things that can bring beauty and awe and experiences of love into your life. And Yeah, it really just comes back to like our life satisfaction is very much connected for feeling like we belong somewhere. And so that's an invitation for all of us to create belonging for others. It's
Mm.
not just the job of those feeling isolated to reach for connection and to reach for belonging. We can all broaden and start to see each other and be there for each other and invite connection and community and belonging and non separation because we've really been through a difficult time of feeling separate from each other
Yeah.
and feeling lost.
Yeah.
And we've got some repair to do.
Yeah, we do. We do. And I thank you so much for sharing that story, Leah. It gives me shivers and chills and just touched my heart so deeply.
Mm.
Yeah.
So, how do you think we can, as a culture, as a community of loving beings, what do we need to do to start healing the divide between each other? What are your insights? Being a woman of color, can we start to do that can make lasting changes and can bring love and connection among ourselves? You have any ideas, thoughts?
Yeah, we have to do our homework because healing starts here, right? So in our tradition, we talk about inside, outside, same. So the healing and purification and clearing that I do here also emanates externally. It also shows up in my outside world. And I can only connect as deeply and intimately with another human being as I'm willing to connect with myself. So I could not be in healthy relationship with others until I had healthy relationship with myself. And that's to me, that's a lifelong journey. I'm continuing to cultivate deeper levels of health and wellness with my relationship to myself and my emotions and, my experience of life. And so I would say the predominant thing that I see in terms of healing racial divides is doing our internal work and also committing ourselves to understanding internalized racial oppression. So the other thing about our school is that we are a declared anti-racist organization. And what that means is we prioritize understanding racism as a source of trauma. And we prioritize understanding how internalized racial oppression presents itself in people of color and white-bodied people. And understanding that dynamic is always in play. It's a very nuanced dynamic, and it's always in play in any interaction. And so being able to understand how internalized racial inferiority shows up in me in relationship to white people helps me interact with white people better so that there's more peace and there's more clarity and there's no more flow. So I'm not getting caught up and hung up in my own internalized sense of worthlessness because of my cultural conditioning. That's the thing to understand about, racism is that it's not personal. It's systemic. We live in a system of white supremacy. That is a fact. It's undeniable, particularly for people of color. And so understanding that racism is not personal, right? It's not about me. It's not about you, who we are as human beings. It's an operating system that operates in our psyche and in our culture 100% of the time, 24/7. So I think of it as like decoding, right? So we on our website, we have our anti-racist covenant. So what it means to us to be an anti-racist organization. And on that page, we also have the manifestations of internalized racial oppression. And they fall into two categories: internalized racial inferiority and internalized racial superiority. And so they're there on the website in like 5 bullet lists for everybody to see, so that we can copy and paste them and use them in our interactions. So when we do clash and there is conflict, we can be like, okay, so what was going on in this conflict is you were manifesting internalized racial superiority in points 1, 2, 5, 7, and 8. And I was manifesting internalized racial inferiority in points 3, 4, 7, and 2, right? Or however it goes, right? So it's something that we're constantly examining inside of ourselves. And what I've learned, we've done, our school has done our training with the People's Institute for Survival and Beyond. It's about breaking free of this concept of duality, but at the same time, being able to observe how it arises, right? So it's like ultimate and relative reality at the same time, being able to hold both as true.
I love how you give voice to it and just really, clarify, like, we all do need to heal as individuals. And then there's this collective systemic, it's almost like a mold that we've got to clean up, it's like, and it's got its little tendrils into all these corners of human beings and of the world, psyches and bodies. And it's powerful.
You know what it's reminding me of another interview, and one of the concepts that came up was in a sexual situation, and an opportunity for exploration arises, and the answer is, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I've sat in a lot of, as I was coming of age, I've been thinking about this. I sat in a lot of I don't know. And although I don't know was true, I didn't actually have another answer. There was a weak place. My I don't know was presented in a way of, you tell me, you try something out, and I'll tell you if it works for me or not. And that, what a setup that is, because it's basically giving over to someone else. Here, you tell me what's right. And when you get it wrong, you're going to be the one that gets to be responsible for getting it wrong, and not me, the person who doesn't know. And so to be able to go, I'm going to phrase that differently. I don't know, but I'm willing to find out. I don't know, and I'm scared to find out. I don't know. Will you help me? I don't know yet. It's like this. It's a whole nother way of going, I'm going to be responsible for my not knowing. I'm not going to give it over up to someone else to do the work and then to take all the responsibility for me when they get it wrong. And I remember like doing that specifically sexually. It was like, hey, what do you like? Someone wanting to pleasure me and please me, and me going, try something. I'll tell you if I like it. And that being the socially acceptable answer in my cultural viewpoint.
Well, it's not acceptable. It's like, that's the demand put on us as heterosexual cisgendered women of our generation. Like, you best not know what you want in bed. Only sluts do. And
that's
sluts
right.
Get married.
That's right.
Right. So like it was a survival mechanism for us to not know what we liked in bed.
Yeah, it was expected.
And we're here to change that.
So many layers, so many layers. It's really exciting.
It
Yeah.
is. It's powerful. What's one thing that's going on in your work right now, Debbie, that's like really up for you and really lighting you up and really exciting you?
What's juicy and exciting?
Whoa, gosh, there's so many things. So I will say that something that's really, really juicy for me right now is we launched a membership program. And what I really love about that is it really meets needs for accessibility for a larger population. And it meets needs for community building, to be able to connect together regularly and frequently. And it's just been fun. It's rich. It needs for pleasure and joy. And so, part of our anti-racist ideology in the organization has been to make some of our public teachings more accessible, because, again, we're coming out of COVID. There's been a lot of job loss. There's, systemic issues, like all sorts of things. So to be able to offer Tibetan Five Element Tantra, the wisdom and the medicine of this wisdom, I'll say, in a way that makes it more accessible to people who are in dire straits, has really, really been congruent with my view of, anti-racism. Because anti-racism isn't just about people of color. It's about our entire society and how these systems of oppression affect all of us to our detriment. And so that's been really exciting and juicy. The membership program is ongoing. And again, it makes it very affordable and very accessible for people to tap into our teachings and continue to I'm going to say, dine on them, munch on them, because as we all know, Tantra is a lifelong path. It's not one workshop. It's not one class. This is a path of personal healing and spiritual realization. And so consistency, practice, diligence, all of that is what leads to these amazing transformative results. And so for people to continue having access and continue being able to absorb the medicine is really, really juicy for me. And then the thing that I've seen from that is like, oh my God, like the results. We had one of our students who, like, when she first signed on, she was like, I'm so grateful. I'm single mom, financially struggling, blah, blah, blah. She started doing some of the elemental meditation practices. And within 2 weeks, she's like, oh my God, sold this house or sold this property. I've got money now. I'm feeling more supported. It's not like everything changes overnight, but you get that's pretty fast.
It's amazing how fast it can go.
Exactly. Yeah. It's amazing how fast it can go. So seeing magic arise. And then also from that, people are being introduced to these methods at a very, low risk way, is see if they integrate and see if they're right for their body and their spiritual path. Because as you know, like, there's many different branches and traditions of Tantra, and not everybody everybody's suitable for every branch, right? And this lineage is very, very specific. And so I love people being introduced to these methods and being able to get a taste of them and experience the results for themselves, and then determine if this is a path that they want to follow long term and eventually become a certified practitioner. So we've had a boost in the interest in our certification program,
Great.
and it's just really enriching and delicious.
It's also really digestible for them, who already have like kids and family and, trying to just maintain, like trying to just survive for somebody who's in that place in their life. The thing of doing Tantra is like, I don't have time. Like, I don't have time to get together with my partner and have a 2-hour intimacy date. Are you kidding me? I have so much to do and kids to put to bed. And so
Right.
giving them a taste, giving them an introductory, I love that membership. Fantastic. So exciting. We'll have to put a link for that as well.
Will you share a little bit about your certification process? What if someone does feel called to do this work and want to be able to support other beings with it? What does your certification process look like? And then what is it that your graduates do, professionally using this? Yeah.
Great
Their
question. And thank you
certification.
for that.
Mhm.
So I'm very proud because our certification program is actually accredited by the Canadian government. And we went through So we are accredited by the Ministry of Education, Advanced Skills and Vocational Training branch of blah, blah, blah. It's very colonial. I can't think of all the words. But what it means is we went through a year-long process of their reviewing our curriculum and ensuring all our ducks were in a row, so to speak, and ensuring that we were able to provide the services that we market for and advertise, and ensure that students going through our training program would receive the skill set that we promised them. And they said, yep, A+, stamp of approval, there you go. And now we get to report to them every year and pay them lots of money. So our certification process is actually a 2-year training program. So phase 1 is what we call our Tantra Mastery Training. And that is a one-on-one personal coaching program that takes you really deep into both the sexual and non-sexual application of Tibetan Five Element Tantra. And if you're introduced to it, let's say through our membership program, you're like, oh, this is delicious, I want to eat more. Then the next step is the phase 1, the Tantra Mastery, so that you can have more of an experience and experience more embodiment and more enrichment and more connection to the methods. And again, determine if you really want to go the whole way. And then once your phase 1 is complete, you're eligible for phase 2. And so phase 2 is an 11-month training that starts the first business day of January in every calendar year. And so that's an 11-month program that consists of 4 modules. I won't go into depth here. But at the end of that, then you're certified. We're also affiliated with the American College of Sexologists International. So all of our graduates also are eligible to receive the additional designation as a certified sexologist through our certification program.
Right.
Fantastic.
And our graduates are considered practitioners of natural healing by the Canadian government.
Wow,
That's so cool.
fantastic. Yeah.
Well done. You have
Yes,
really set up an
congratulations.
empire. I love it. So
Yeah.
fantastic. Good for you.
And so how do those graduates apply that teaching in their own businesses? Do they have a private practice? Is it a teaching classes type of thing? Is it a mix of the two?
Yeah, all of the above, I would say. So some people already have an established coaching business or massage therapy or healing or integrative medicine business, and they add the Tantra on top of it, or they weave it into their business. And that's something that we really celebrate and really encourage. And we've seen that our graduates who already have an existing platform in place do really well adding this to it. Also, people who just like, I just want to be a Tantra teacher. That's it. We train our instructors to be coaches, to teach classes, workshops, personal coaching sessions, women, men, couples, non-binary, like all the whole shebang, so that you can share and teach your Tantra however you want. We do have some practitioners who are also body workers as well. And so they weave the Tantra into their body work as well. So we support our practitioners like my understanding of Tantra, the way it was taught to me, is that when you receive the teachings and they begin to work inside of you, your emanation of Tantra is going to be unique to you.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a key component and a critical piece. So I wanted our graduates to be able to use their Tantra in the way that best worked for them. So that I'm teaching you in this particular way with this particular format. But what I want you to do is integrate these methods and make them your own. And then you transmit these teachings in the flavor and the style that works best for you. Does that make sense?
Oh, I love
Totally.
it.
Yeah,
That's how we teach too. It's
Yeah.
like, here's the foundation and the medicine, and now you make it your own. You create your own pathway with it. Because then it's really emanating further out. It's rippling out into the world, into their students, in the most authentic way, which is the name of it, the authentic Tantra education, so really powerful.
yeah.
Well, yeah. And I love that because like my mama could never have imagined in a million years that I would be doing this with the Tantra. He's just like, let me teach you, do this, don't do that, focus on this, don't focus, like, yes, blah, blah, blah. Look, he would have never imagined in a million years that I'd move to Canada and start a school.
And he never would have come with all the experience that you've been through
Yeah, that's
from
right.
even before you were born,
Yeah.
just all the pieces of your journey have made you the exceptional guide and teacher that you are today.
Which leads into your generous free offer to help people get started on their own journey. Devi is gifting you with a free introduction to authentic Tantra so that you can have a delicious appetizer into this five elements world. Is there anything you want to say about that?
Yeah. So our free introduction to authentic Tantra introduces you to our foundation, which are the 4 pillars of healing. So the 4 pillars of healing are meditation, movement, connection, and pleasure. And so the authentic Tantra modality teaches tools and methods that fall under each of these 4 pillars. And so the meditations obviously are the Tibetan 5 element teachings. So in this free intro, you'll get a tutorial on what those are and how they work. So I draw this fun diagram of the energy body and how the 5 element energy body practices work to heal and clear, purify, and enrich your entire energy body. And then therefore your physical body. And then in one of the last videos, I offer a 5-step solo sexual healing session using some of the methods that we talked about. And so it's a really wonderful, in my opinion, it's a very wonderful intro, and it comes with practical, concrete tools that you can begin using in your life immediately. So that's that free intro.
Yum.
It sounds like
Yum.
such a good, safe, okay, you can try this on. Like if you've always been, what the hell is Tantra? I've heard it. Does it just mean you're having sex with a lot of different people in a room together? I mean,
Right.
what is this stuff? This is very foundational. It's very tangible, digestible, this free gift that Devi's offering. So definitely take advantage of it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, it's
Such
been
a pleasure.
pleasure. Yeah. I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, our favorite part, the dish.
Welcome. It is Sex Reimagined, and we just got to sit down with the beautiful, the talented, the amazing Devi Ward Erikson.
Yeah, she really has created such a talented and driven woman, and has really created such an opportunity for those who are interested in Tantra to dive into some of the ancient wisdom around it, bringing in the Tibetan 5 elements to tantric practice and wisdom. I mean, she's studied with monks. I loved her whole thing. She went from a stripper in Detroit, of all
Yeah,
places. That's kind of
detail.
hardcore.
Totally.
Stripper in Detroit to a monk, just like teaching meditation and just
Yeah,
really
been in
deep
Hawaii.
deep into that world to kind of bringing forth this beautiful offering of learning Tantra through the lens of Tibetan
Yeah,
Buddhism.
made me really want to go dive deeper with her and learn about these this 5 element practice, like practicing Tantra through that particular lens. I found it really intriguing and interesting, and I love all of the work she's done to have it be seen as a valid course of study, that like the
Mhm.
Canadian government has backed up and validated it as an institution. I just feel so, I mean, I have no reason to feel proud of her, but I do feel a sense of
Proud,
like,
yeah.
yeah, like doing it.
Yeah, proud of her.
Yeah.
She's worked hard for it. She's
So much
come a
admiration.
long way. She told us the story of her own dark night of the soul where she was about to end her life, take her life. And if any of you have been there, I myself have, and if you've been on that moment where you've got the knife to your wrist or you've got the
Feels,
razor blade there
yeah.
or the pills nearby and you're just really over it, you're like, what is my worth? There is no worth here. I have a zero, less than zero, none. And so to climb out of that darkness to where she is at now is really inspiring to witness. So we've both been on this path for a long time as well. And the beauty of it is that we're all in different places with it. And it's all powerful and it's all worthy.
Yeah, I think what Willow was alluding to, I know I can speak for myself, is why aren't I as accomplished? Why don't I feel like I'm as far along? Like, God, she's so quick. Like she's just so fast in her ability to communicate and articulate and message clearly
Yeah.
what she has to say, what she's offering, what's important. Like I just
Mhm.
kind of was just sitting there going, she's so
She is so cool. It's funny. This is my second interview with Devi Ward, and I felt the same way the first time too. I was like, she is just really a rock star and so cool. And who am I and where am I and what am I doing? I had my own insecurities come up back then too. That was like, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago. It was a long time ago. And so it's just really interesting doing all of these interviews. Some people you're like, oh, I aspire to be like you. It's just a golden arrow. It's just a golden arrow pointing us to what we truly want, what we really desire. And we have the ability to create that. So, it's going to look different for everyone, but nobody can do Debbie's work the way Debbie does it, and so what she brings to the table is so unique and so valuable for those who need her medicine. So it's just, it's an opportunity for us to drop into the truth of the fact that there are so many different kinds of people, walks of life on this planet, and anyone who is looking into evolving their sexuality, evolving their self as a human being through the avenue of their sexuality, there is a guide for you out there. There is the perfect teacher out there for you.
well, and it's like another thing of just going, get over yourself. You're not a fucking snowflake. Like
Exactly.
no one's a little fucking unicorn. So when you get kind of in that comparison place, it's a beautiful chance to just sort of laugh at yourself and not take yourself so seriously.
It's so true. It's so true.
Yeah. And there's not anyone who doesn't compare themselves to somebody else, especially in
Absolutely.
their industry, So
Absolutely.
yeah, it's these things are gonna arise. One of the things that was interesting is Debbie and I were both featured in a movie called Sexology.
Okay.
I never even looked at the movie. I have a tendency to like not want to look at myself after filming something. I just know I'm going to pick it apart and it's going to be a brutal, shame-filled experience. And I don't really like putting myself through that. I know that's not nice. As my husband would say, be nice to my friend, when I'm being hard to
Cute.
myself. I know, he's like, you
I
better be
love that.
nice to my friend. She's my
Oh,
best friend.
Matt.
I know. It was so sweet. He's so right. And so like I don't even know how much of my little interview is in the movie. I did look it up because I wanted to see if I was at all accredited in the movie to see if I even made it in the movie. Evidently I did. My name is up there, but since my name has changed, I went in and edited a few to the points, which you're allowed to do. So, and that's when I noticed, oh, like Debbie, was a pretty big player in this movie, and I had no idea. So now I want to watch it, mainly because I want to watch her.
Yeah, I want to watch it too.
When she mentioned that she knew that I was also a part of it, then that made me think, oh, maybe I really am in it, and I don't know how much or why she would have ever thought of me or remembered me. I was also 60 pounds heavier. I remember being really insecure. It was during a rather difficult time around my body image issues, which someday we'll probably hear all about.
Oh, yeah.
my little journey.
That's a whole podcast coming.
Yeah, that's a whole podcast.
Leah's journey.
Leah's freaking journey. So anyways, it was loaded, it was kind of a loaded time in my life. And when there was a recognition in that, I was really caught off guard. It happened right at the very end of the interview. Probably
Mm.
slipped most people's notice, but obviously it didn't slip mine. It was a gulp moment. I was just like, oh, somebody might have seen me somewhere and I might hate what it is, So
Right.
again, there's that like insecurity, that thing of going, God, I hope I didn't make a fool out of myself,
Mhm.
Um,
One of the beautiful things about those moments along anyone's evolutionary journey, and no matter what you do, maybe you're in the scientific realm or the medical realm or whatever, those moments are the building blocks to where you are now. You couldn't be who you are, where you are now, without stepping on that particular stone at that particular time.
You know what I wish I would have asked her about? So, if anyone has followed the Nexium scandal, which was like that whole sort of cult, new age sort of cult, it got really big in the press because they were branding some of the girls, and this big story got leaked. And one of the head people that got the guru guy arrested was Catherine Oxenberg. Catherine Oxenberg was the one that was the main director and interviewer for that movie, Sexuality. So that was my first introduction to Catherine. And then later on, Catherine has this big scandal with her daughter, who was a big part of this cult. So I really wanted to ask Debbie, and we had more time. Okay, so do you know anything about like what's the lady?
You should still go ask her.
Yeah, I should. I know. It was really sort
Now
of.
I'm
So what do you
curious.
know? Yeah. Yeah. So there's that connection.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the other thing I thought was really powerful about Debbie's messaging was the whole internal racism
Yes, that
piece.
was so powerful.
Yeah.
The way she spoke about the systemic racism in our culture
And in
and
our
how
bodies.
in our bodies, yeah, and how it has played an absolute role on such a subconscious level. Just really, really great perspective and great take on that.
Yeah, it really, especially for me, like I want to start investigating this particular topic in relationship to non-dualism.
Mm.
And because that's where I see part of the separation happening between ourselves. And I want to engage a new conversation. I don't know that I'm the right one to know how to lead into that. So getting some support maybe from Debbie would be a good idea, because I want to be closer to all the people in my life. I want to find out, is there something separating me and my friends of color?
Yeah, in fact, she did point us toward her website where some good
Yeah.
just starting places for
I
that.
looked it up too, and yeah, it's interesting. That deserves a lot more research and investigation. And her free gift is really interesting. I haven't had a chance to dive very deep into it, but yeah, y'all don't forget to download her offer.
Yeah, grab that free gift for sure.
Yeah. So thank you, Debbie. Thanks for so many pieces that you shared, the sweetness of who you are, the realness of who you are, the depth of your message, your work.
Yeah, absolutely. And the practices that I've done with her in the past have been really simple and extremely powerful as well. So when you do start to dive into her work, you'll find that there's a real simplicity to it because of all that Tibetan Buddhism influence around her work. And that can really be an invitation, a deeper invitation for anyone who's like, I don't know about this Tantra thing. I'm not so sure, could be that her work is just the temperature that would work for you.
Right, especially if maybe you have a habit of over complicating things.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Get the simplified version.
Right, right.
we'd love to hear what it brought up for you and, what you learned from it, anything about that systemic racism that she spoke on. We want to hear from you about that. So come on over to the Sex Reimagined Instagram account and share with us.
Thanks for tuning in. If the hosts seem to know what they were talking about, that's because they do. Leah Piper is a tantric sex master coach and a positive psychology facilitator. Dr. Willow Brown is both a Chinese and functional medicine doctor and a Taoist sexology teacher. Don't forget, your comments, likes, subscribes, and suggestions matter. Let's realize this new world together.
It's time for us to get love right, folks. And so we invite you to check out the King and Queen of Hearts.
This is an incredible training for couples who are struggling in unsatisfying sex lives.
It's also for lifelong learners, people whose relationship is great and they want to make it even better.
In this 3-part training that is filled with 8 different tutorials like the art of tantric kissing, eye gazing that is deep and intimate, connective, and not creepy, and sacred sexual meditations, you do them with your lover to juice you up before sex. Communication tips and really, really valuable relationship essentials are all found in this training.
A common mistake couples make is they wait, they put it off, they avoid, they resist. And if you want to continue doing that, well, good luck. But if you really want to make a change, get this today. Don't let another month go by where you're losing precious connection with your partner.
Plus, you can't beat the price on this program. One of our clients, Casey, said a spark in their intimacy is back on track.
Now, Sarah and her husband, you know what she told us, Willow? She said, finally, he learned how to kiss her right.
Oh my God, hallelujah. So happy for Sarah.
So if you want some radical changes in your love life, go to sexreimagined.com, click on courses, and scroll until you find the King and Queen of Hearts. And because you are a fan of the podcast, you can use the King and Queen 10 code in order to get 10% off. That is King and Queen 10, and you can use it in the checkout.